Receptionist laughs at Vanessa Trump, the Trump's family reaction. Jenny Martinez hated Tuesdays at New York Medical. They were always chaos, pure chaos. She'd worked the front desk for 3 years, but Tuesdays still made her stomach churn. "Mrs. Peterson, please fill out the blue form." "No, the blue one. Yes, that's no, that's green." Jenny forced a smile, her coffee getting cold beside her keyboard. The morning rush was hitting hard, and her anxiety medication was wearing off. Her coworker Diane leaned over. "You okay, honey? You are looking a little pale." "I am fine," Jenny lied, tugging at her collar. The air conditioning was broken again, and the waiting room was getting stuffy. "Just need to make it to lunch." A child screamed somewhere in the crowd. Jenny flinched. Her nervous laugh bubbled up, that same damn laugh that got her in trouble at her aunt's funeral, at her high school graduation, during her first breakup. She swallowed it down. "Martinez," Dr. Stevens called from the hallway. "Here's the Thompson file?" "Sending it now." She fumbled with the computer, hands shaking slightly. The morning blur continued. Forms, phone calls, frustrated patients, doctors rushing past. At 10:43 a.m., her phone buzzed. Mom again. "Honey, did you take your meds?" "Yes, Mom." "The new ones?" "Yes, Mom." "Are you eating?" "Working now. Love you." Jenny put her phone away just as Mr. Garcia approached the desk, clutching his chest. "Sir? Sir? Are you all right?" "Just heartburn," he gasped. Jenny's training kicked in. "Code Blue, we need help here," she shouted, already reaching for the emergency button. Within seconds, nurses swarmed around Mr. Garcia. Jenny's heart raced as they wheeled him away. "Good catch," Diane whispered. Jenny nodded, still trembling. That's when she noticed the waiting room had gotten eerily quiet. She looked up. 2 men in black suits had entered, scanning the area with practiced efficiency. Jenny's throat went dry. She'd seen those types before Secret Service, which meant Vanessa Trump walked in, holding her right wrist. She wore simple black yoga pants and a gray cashmere sweater. Her face twisted in pain. No makeup, hair in a messy ponytail so different from her usual polished appearance. "Deep breaths," Jenny whispered to herself. "Just treat her like any other patient." But she wasn't any other patient. Behind Vanessa, 3 more suits entered, positioning themselves strategically around the waiting room. Other patients started whispering, pulling out phones. "No photos," one of the agents announced firmly. "Please respect Mrs. Trump's privacy." Vanessa approached the desk slowly. Jenny could see the swelling around her wrist, already turning purple. I need to see someone," Vanessa said quietly, her voice tight with pain. "I fell during yoga." Jenny nodded, fingers hovering over her keyboard. "Of course, Mrs. Trump. I'll just need you to—" That's when it happened. Maybe it was the stress of the morning. Maybe it was Mr. Garcia's near heart attack. Maybe it was her meds wearing off, or the heat, or the pressure of those Secret Service eyes watching her every move. The laugh burst out. Short, sharp, inappropriate. Jenny's hands flew to her mouth, but it was too late. The waiting room fell silent. Even the usual hospital beeps and whirs seemed to stop. Vanessa's face transformed shock, disbelief, humiliation, rage, all in the span of seconds. "I am so," Jenny started. "How dare you?" Vanessa's whisper cut through the silence like a knife. Then louder, her voice cracking. "How dare you?" One of the agents stepped forward. Jenny's world started spinning. "Mrs. Trump, to have this condition. I laugh when I am nervous. I didn't mean." "A condition?" Vanessa's voice rose higher. "I come here in pain, seeking help, and you laugh?" Phones were out now, despite the agent's warnings. Jenny could almost hear the tweets being typed, the videos being uploaded, her career flashing before her eyes. "Security," Diane was saying into the phone. "We need security at the front desk." Vanessa was crying now, tears of pain and humiliation streaming down her face. "Do you know what it took for me to come here? To a regular hospital? I wanted to be normal. Just for once." The agent closest to Vanessa touched her shoulder. "Mrs. Trump, perhaps we should—" "No," Vanessa pulled away. "I want her name. I want to know who thinks my pain is funny." Jenny's chest tightened. The room was spinning faster now. She could hear Diane saying something about anxiety attacks, could feel someone trying to help her stand. The last thing Jenny saw before her vision went dark was Vanessa Trump's tear-streaked face, and all she could think was, "Mom's going to be so worried." When Jenny came to, she was lying on a stretcher in the employee break room. Dr. Stevens was checking her pulse, while Diane held her hand. What happened?" Jenny mumbled. "You had a panic attack," Dr. Stevens said quietly. "A bad one." The events came rushing back. The laugh, Mrs. Trump. The phones recording everything. "Oh God." Jenny tried to sit up. "I need to fix this. You need to rest." Diane pushed her back gently. "The situation is being handled." "Being handled?" Jenny's voice cracked. "What does that mean?" From the hallway, they could hear raised voices. One particularly loud one stood out, male, angry, familiar from television appearances. "That's my wife you are talking about. I want to see the person responsible." Jenny's heart rate spiked again. The monitor beside her started beeping faster. "Is that Don Jr.?" she whispered. Dr. Stevens nodded grimly. "He arrived about 10 minutes ago. The hospital administrator is speaking with him now." "The video's already trending on Twitter," Diane said, then quickly added at Dr. Stevens' glare. "Not that you need to worry about that right now." But Jenny was already reaching for her phone. Her hands shook as she opened Twitter. The first video had over 100,000 views already. The comments were brutal. "Trump family humiliated at NYC hospital. Receptionist laughs at Vanessa Trump's pain. Watch. The moment that will get someone fired." "I can't breathe," Jenny gasped. "I can't." "Put the phone down," Dr. Stevens ordered, taking it from her hands. "Right now, you are my patient, and you need to calm down." Outside, Don Jr.'s voice got louder. "I don't care about HIPAA regulations. I want her name." Jenny started crying. Not quiet, dignified tears, but deep, body-shaking sobs. "My mom, she's going to see this. Everyone's going to see this." Diane stroked her hair. "Honey, it was an accident. Everyone who knows you knows about your nervous laugh." "Tell that to them." Jenny gestured wildly at the door. "Tell that to Twitter. Tell that to—" The break room door burst open. A tall man in a suit, not Secret Service, different kind of suit, strode in. "Miss Martinez, I am Richard Coleman from Hospital Legal. We need to talk about what happened." Dr. Stevens stepped forward. "My patient is in no condition to—" "With all due respect, doctor," Coleman interrupted, "there are 3 news vans outside already. This situation is escalating by the minute." Jenny wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara further. What do they want?" Coleman's face was grim. "Mrs. Trump's team is demanding a public apology. Mr. Trump Jr. is, well, he's demanding considerably more than that." "More?" "Your termination, for starters. And," he checked his notebook, I quote, "making an example of the kind of disrespect his family faces daily." Fresh tears spilled down Jenny's cheeks. 3 years of work, her apartment rent, her mom's medical bills, all going up in flames because of one stupid, uncontrollable laugh. From the hallway, they could hear the hospital administrator. "Mr. Trump, please lower your voice. We have patients." "Patients? Like my wife was a patient? Before your staff turned her into a viral joke." Jenny closed her eyes. The room was spinning again. "What do I do?" she whispered. "Please, someone tell me what to do." Donald Trump Jr. gripped his phone so hard his knuckles turned white. The video played again, his wife, in pain, being laughed at, again and again. "Get the car," he barked at his assistant, "now." "Sir, you're 11 a.m. Cancel everything." His phone buzzed continuously. Twitter notifications, news alerts, text messages. The video was everywhere. "You are not going to believe what just happened to your wife," read one headline. "Trump family humiliated at local hospital," screamed another. The car wound through Manhattan traffic, Don Jr.'s rage building with every passing minute. His phone rang. "Eric?" "Little busy right now," Don Jr. snapped. "I saw the video," Eric said. "Listen, before you do anything—" "Before I do anything? Did you see what they did to her? Did you see?" "I saw." Everyone saw. That's the problem. Don Jr. laughed bitterly. The problem is some minimum wage receptionist thinking she can disrespect my wife and get away with it. The problem, Eric said slowly, is that you are about to storm into a hospital full of phones and cameras. I don't care. Dad's calling the other line, Eric sighed. Just, don't make this worse. Don Jr. hung up. The hospital loomed ahead. Inside New York Medical's administrative offices, chaos reigned. Margaret Chen, the hospital administrator, was dealing with her own storm. How many reporters? She asked her assistant. 17 at last count, 3 news vans, and TMZ just arrived. Margaret rubbed her temples. 25 years in hospital administration hadn't prepared her for this. Her phone lit up again, the mayor's office. Tell them I'll call back, she said, then turned to her head of PR. What do we know about this girl? Sarah Thompson, PR director, consulted her tablet. Jennifer Martinez, 3 years with us, exemplary There's actually a note in her file about a diagnosed anxiety condition that manifests as inappropriate laughter. Jesus, Margaret muttered. Why wasn't I told about this earlier? We're a hospital, Sarah replied. Half our staff has anxiety. The door burst open. They're here, her assistant said breathlessly. Mr. Trump and his team, they're coming up. Margaret straightened her jacket. Sarah, get legal up here, and somebody find me Miss Martinez's complete file. Ma'am? Her assistant squeaked. I hear there's also a problem with the video. What problem? It's not just trending. Celebrities are sharing it. Politicians. It's becoming political. Of course it was. Everything became political these days. The elevator dinged. Margaret could hear the commotion before she saw it. Don Jr.'s voice carried down the hallway. I don't care about your procedures. Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and went pale. CNN is running it. Margaret took a deep breath and opened her office door. Don Jr. stood there, face flushed, flanked by lawyers and security. Mr. Trump, she said calmly, please come in. Where is she? He demanded. Miss Martinez is currently under medical care. Medical care? He scoffed. What about my wife's medical care, the care she came here for before being turned into a viral joke? Margaret gestured to the chairs. Please sit, we're handling this situation. Handling it? The video has 1 million views already. My wife is trending for being laughed at while in pain. How exactly are you handling that? Sarah stepped forward. Mr. Trump, we understand your frustration. The hospital is preparing a statement. A statement? Don Jr. laughed harshly. I don't want a statement. I want that girl's job. I want an example made. Sir, Margaret said firmly, we have procedures. I'll buy this hospital. The room fell silent. Excuse me? Margaret said. I said, I'll buy this hospital. How much? Name a price. Then we'll see about procedures. Sarah's tablet buzzed again. She looked down and whispered to Margaret. Vanessa Trump is live on Instagram. She's crying. Meanwhile, in the break room, Jenny sat curled in a chair, her mother now beside her. The television mounted on the wall played silently, but Jenny could read the ticker, Trump family drama at NYC hospital. Mija, her mother said softly, look at me. Jenny couldn't. Her phone lay face down on the table, but she could feel it vibrating constantly. Friends, news outlets, random strangers who'd somehow found her number. I have to quit, Jenny whispered, before they fire me. No, her mother said firmly, you did nothing wrong. Tell that to them? Jenny gestured at the television. Tell that to the thousands of people calling me a monster online. Her mother grabbed her hands. Listen to me. Your father, God rest his soul, had the same thing. Remember his laugh at funerals, at weddings? It's not your fault. Dad didn't laugh at one of the most famous families in America? No, her mother smiled sadly. He laughed at Tio Roberto's wedding, right at the I do, and Roberto didn't speak to us for a year, but eventually. This is different, Mom, Jenny pulled away. This isn't family. This is everywhere. On the television, the ticker changed. Donald Trump Jr. arrives at hospital, demands action. Jenny's phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Hope you enjoy unemployment, B. Chech. In the hospital's main lobby, the tension was building. Reporters pressed against the glass doors. Security guards formed a line. Patients tried to slip past unnoticed, heads down. Eric Trump strode through the doors, ignoring the shouted questions. He headed straight for the elevators, phone to his ear. Ivanka? Yeah, I am here. No, you shouldn't come. It's a circus. No, he's not listening to me. I know. Dad's furious. Yes, I saw Vanessa's Instagram. Listen, can you try calling Don? He's about to. Hold on. The elevator opened. A group of doctors stepped out, then froze at the sight of him. I'll call you back, Eric said, stepping in. As the doors closed, he could hear the growing chants outside. Shame, shame, shame. But whether they were shouting at the hospital, at his family, or at the whole situation, he couldn't tell anymore. Upstairs, in Margaret Chen's office, the negotiation continued. Mr. Trump, she said, her voice strained, you can't just buy a hospital because… Watch me. Don Jr. paced the room. One call to our investors. How much debt does this place carry? How many board members would jump at a buyout? Sarah's tablet buzzed yet again. Sir, she interrupted, your wife? She's giving an interview, live, on Fox News. Don Jr. stopped pacing. What? They all turned to the office television. There was Vanessa, her eyes red, her wrist now professionally wrapped, sitting in what looked like a doctor's private office. I just wanted to be treated like a normal person, she was saying, her voice breaking. Is that too much to ask? To not be laughed at when you are in pain? The Fox host nodded sympathetically. And this employee, this Jennifer Martinez. I don't want to ruin anyone's life, Vanessa said softly. I just wanted help. Don Jr.'s phone rang. The screen showed Dad. In the break room, Jenny watched the same interview, her heart sinking further with each word. Her mother squeezed her hand. Mia, I think it's time we called Father Rodriguez. A priest, Mom? Really? For guidance, her mother insisted. And maybe a miracle. Jenny laughed, then started crying, then laughed again. Outside, the crowd grew larger. Signs appeared. Stand with Vanessa. Healthcare is no joke. Fire the laughing nurse. And in the middle of it all, a single tweet started gaining traction. Before we cancel this girl, maybe we should ask why a billionaire's wife needed a public hospital in the first place. Number just asking. The storm was far from over. Eric found his brother still pacing in Margaret Chen's office, their father's call going straight to voicemail for the 5th time. Don, Eric said quietly, we need to talk. Not now. Yes, now. Eric turned to the others. Could we have the room? Margaret nodded gratefully, ushering her team out. The door closed with a soft click. Have you seen the new hashtags? Eric asked. Don Jr. glared. I don't care about hashtags. Number why public hospital is trending. People are asking questions about Vanessa, about insurance, about nothing. Don Jr. slammed his hand on the desk. This isn't about healthcare policy. This is about respect. Is it? Eric pulled out his phone. Because right now, there are 2 narratives forming. One about a cruel receptionist, and one about why a Trump needed a public hospital in the first place. Don Jr. stopped pacing. What are you saying? I am saying that sometimes the bigger the storm you create, the more people look at what caused the rain. Meanwhile, in a private room 3 floors down, Vanessa ended her Fox News interview. The moment the camera turned off, she slumped in her chair. Mrs. Trump? A young nurse peeked in. Your pain medication. Thank you, Vanessa whispered, taking the pills with shaking hands. Has anyone heard from her? Her? The girl, the one who… Vanessa couldn't finish. The nurse shifted uncomfortably. Miss Martinez is still in the building. She's not doing well. Vanessa closed her eyes. The medication was starting to work, dulling not just her wrist pain, but the edges of her humiliation. I never meant for all this, she said softly. The nurse just nodded and slipped out. In the break room, Jenny stared at her phone. The messages had evolved. Die Trumper hater. Secret hero, DM me your story. Kun wants to interview you about healthcare inequality. I can't do this, she whispered. Her mother was praying in rapid Spanish, rosary beads clicking. Father Rodriguez was on his way. A soft knock on the door made them both jump. Diane peeked in. Jenny, there's someone here to see you. No more lawyers, please. It's not a lawyer. Diane stepped aside. Eric Trump stood in the doorway, looking uncomfortable in his perfect suit. Miss Martinez, we need to talk about making this go away, for everyone's sake. The news vans outside had multiplied. Protesters on both sides faced off across the entrance. And somewhere in Trump Tower, a phone finally connected. Junior? Donald Trump's voice boomed. What the hell is happening at that hospital? The Trump family's Central Park West apartment felt smaller than usual. Maybe it was the tension that filled every corner, or maybe it was the crowd. Don Jr. Pacing like a caged animal, Vanessa curled up on the white leather sofa, her wrapped wrist cradled against her chest, Eric standing by the window, and Ivanka perched on the armchair. Her perfect posture, a stark contrast to everyone else's agitation. 4 million views, Don Jr. spat, checking his phone again. 4 million people watching my wife get humiliated. Don, Ivanka said softly, you are making it worse. Worse? He spun around. How could it possibly get worse? Eric cleared his throat. Well, for starters, number Trump healthcare is now trending. People are asking why Vanessa was at a public hospital. I told you why. Vanessa's voice was barely a whisper. I was near there when I fell. It was closest. I just wanted to be normal. Normal? Don Jr. laughed harshly. We're not normal. We've never been normal. That's the whole point. Vanessa flinched. Ivanka moved to sit beside her, placing a manicured hand on her knee. Has anyone actually watched the full video? Ivanka asked. Not the clips, not the edits, the raw footage. I lived it, Vanessa said bitterly. I don't need to watch it. Maybe you do. Ivanka pulled out her tablet. Because I've watched it 17 times, and I see something different. Don Jr. stopped pacing. What are you talking about? Look, Ivanka pressed play. The familiar scene unfolded. Vanessa entering, the receptionist looking up, the laugh. There, Ivanka paused it. Look at her face. Really look. They gathered around the tablet, even Vanessa, though she had to force herself. She's terrified, Eric said quietly. Even before the laugh. Keep watching. Ivanka pressed play again. The video continued. Jenny's immediate horror, her hands flying to her mouth, the tears already forming in her eyes. That's not mockery, Ivanka said. That's panic. Pure panic. So? Don Jr. demanded. She still laughed. At my wife. In pain. Your wife? Eric interjected. Who was at a public hospital because she wanted to be normal. Don't you see the irony here? A knock at the door interrupted them. The maid entered quietly. Mr. Trump? Your father is on FaceTime. The large television screen flickered to life. Donald Trump's face filled the screen, Mar-a-Lago's sunlit interior visible behind him. What the hell is going on? His voice boomed through the speakers. I am getting calls from everyone. CNN, Fox, even that idiot from MSNBC. Dad, Don Jr. started. We're handling it. Handling it? It's been 12 hours, and my daughter-in-law is a trending topic. Again. Vanessa stood suddenly, swaying slightly. I need air. Sit down, Don Jr. ordered. Number. Her voice was stronger now. No, I won't sit down. I won't be quiet. Do you know what it's like? Do you have any idea what it's like to be me? The room fell silent. Even Donald on the screen stopped talking. Every day, every single day, I am watched, judged, photographed. I can't buy coffee without it becoming news. I can't take the kids to school without security. I can't even get hurt without it becoming a national incident. Tears were streaming down her face now. And you know what? That girl, that receptionist, she wasn't laughing at me. She was scared, terrified. Just like I am every time I step outside. Just like I am right now. Vanessa. Don Jr. reached for her. Don't. She stepped back. Don't touch me. This whole thing. It's not about her laughing. It's about me wanting one moment, one single moment, of being just another person in pain, seeking help. And you all turned it into this circus. We're protecting you, Don Jr. insisted. No, you are protecting the brand, the name, the empire. When was the last time any of you asked what I wanted? From the television, Donald cleared his throat. Sweetheart. I am not your sweetheart. Vanessa's voice cracked. I am not anyone's anything right now. I am just tired. Ivanka stood, moving towards her sister-in-law. What do you want, Vanessa? Tell us. Really tell us. Vanessa looked around the room, at the faces of her family, at her father-in-law on the screen, at her husband's clenched fists, at her wrapped wrist. I want to talk to her. Who? Don Jr. asked, though they all knew. Jenny Martinez. I want to talk to the girl who laughed. Woman to woman. No lawyers, no press, no family, just us. Absolutely not, Don Jr. started. Actually, Ivanka interrupted. That might be exactly what we need. Eric nodded slowly. It could change the narrative. It's too risky, Don Jr. protested. From the screen, Donald's voice cut through. Let her do it. They all turned to look at him. Dad? Don Jr. sounded shocked. Sometimes, Donald said, uncharacteristically thoughtful, the best deals happen when you let the women talk. Vanessa wiped her eyes, smearing expensive mascara across her cheeks. For the first time that day, she stood straight, her shoulders back. I am doing this, she said, with or without your approval. Because right now there are two women being torn apart by social media. And maybe we're not so different after all. The silence that followed was deafening. Don Jr.'s phone buzzed again, another news alert. They're saying she has a history, he said quietly. The receptionist? Anxiety disorder. Medical records leaked. Ivanka's head snapped up. That's illegal. Since when has that stopped anyone? Eric muttered. From the television screen, Donald cleared his throat. Junior, your wife's made her decision. Make it work. Dad, make it work. The screen went black. Vanessa walked to the window, watching the city lights flicker on as dusk settled. Her wrist throbbed. I used to have panic attacks, she said softly. Before we got married. The cameras, the attention. It was overwhelming. Don Jr. moved toward her. You never told me. Would it have mattered? She turned to face him. We're Trumps. We don't show weakness, right? Eric checked his phone. Hospital saying she's still there. Jenny Martinez hasn't left the building. Of course she hasn't, Ivanka said. Where would she go? Her face is everywhere. Vanessa touched her wrapped wrist gently. Call the hospital. Tell them I am coming back. I'll handle the press. Ivanka stood. We'll frame it as a moment of healing. Woman to woman. Number. Vanessa's voice was firm. No framing, no spin, just two people trying to fix something broken. Don Jr. ran his hands through his hair. At least let security. One guard. At the door. Outside the room. Vanessa's tone left no room for argument. I am tired of walls of men between me and the real world. She walked to the bedroom, presumably to change. The siblings watched her go. She's changed, Eric observed. No, Ivanka corrected. She's just finally showing us who she's always been. Don Jr. slumped onto the sofa. Dad's going to kill me. Dad? Ivanka said, gathering her things. Might actually be proud. For once, we're not fighting fire with fire. Then, what are we doing? Ivanka paused at the door. We're letting two scared women find their humanity in the middle of a storm. Sometimes that's braver than any battle. The hospital conference room felt sterile and cold. Jenny sat at one end of the long table, her mother's rosary clutched in her hands. Her phone lay silent. She'd finally turned it off after the 1,000th message. A soft knock made her jump. Diane poked her head in. She's here. Jenny's heart raced. Already? But it's only. She came through the back entrance, no press. Vanessa Trump entered alone, still in her yoga clothes from that morning, though she'd thrown on a cashmere cardigan. Her wrapped wrist rested in a sling. For a moment, both women just stared at each other. "You look terrible," Vanessa said suddenly. Jenny blinked. "So do you." A beat of silence, then both women let out small, nervous laughs. They froze, eyes wide, then laughed again, genuinely this time. God, Vanessa sank into a chair. What a day. "Mrs. Trump, Vanessa, please, I think we're beyond formalities." Jenny nodded, twisting the rosary tighter. "Vanessa, I am so sorry. The laugh, it's this thing I have, since I was a kid, when I am stressed or scared." "You laugh," Vanessa finished. "I know, your medical records got leaked." "What?" Jenny felt the room spin. "But that's illegal? Welcome to my world." Vanessa gestured around them. "Everything's public. Everything's ammunition." Jenny felt tears forming. "I never wanted this, any of this. I love my job. I love helping people. Even rich, entitled people who should go to private hospitals?" Jenny looked up sharply, but saw a small smile on Vanessa's face. "I saw the hashtags," Vanessa continued. "People asking why I was here. Want to know the truth?" Jenny nodded. "I was at the yoga studio 2 blocks away. When I fell, God, it hurt so much. And my security team started talking about protocols, about approved facilities, about calling ahead. And I just wanted to be normal, to walk into an ER like anyone else." "That's why you were alone?" "Well, except for security." "Minimum detail, my choice." Vanessa touched her wrist gently. "Funny thing is, if I'd gone to our usual place, none of this would have happened." "I am sorry," Jenny whispered again. "Stop apologizing." Vanessa's voice was firm. "I've been thinking about it all day, about the laugh, about my reaction, about everything that followed." She leaned forward. "Do you know what it's like to have every mistake, every awkward moment, every human reaction dissected by millions?" Jenny gestured at her phone. "I am getting an idea." "It's hell, isn't it?" "Complete hell." They sat in silence for a moment. "My mother-in-law," Vanessa said suddenly, "she once told me that being a Trump means never showing weakness, never letting them see you crack." She laughed softly. "Well, I cracked today, in front of the whole world." "We both did." "Yes, but you had a reason, a medical condition. I just had wounded pride." Jenny shook her head. "Pain is pain, fear is fear. Does it matter why?" Vanessa studied her for a long moment. "You're good at your job, aren't you?" "I try to be." "Even when terrified billionaire wives storm in?" "Especially then." Jenny managed a small smile, though maybe with less laughing next time. Vanessa reached across the table with her good hand. After a moment's hesitation, Jenny took it. "What happens now?" Jenny asked. "Now?" Vanessa squeezed her hand. "Now we fix it, together." Outside the conference room, Don Jr. paced while Ivanka watched through the window. "They're holding hands," Ivanka reported. "And are they laughing? Real laughter or anxiety laughter? Does it matter?" In her office, Margaret Chen watched the hospital's social media mentions shift in real time. A new photo was trending, taken through the conference room window, showing Jenny and Vanessa in what looked like prayer, hands clasped across the table. Her phone buzzed. A text from the board, "Crisis averted?" She looked at the photo again. 2 women, both broken in different ways, finding healing and understanding. "More than averted," she typed back. "Transformed." That evening, as New York's lights twinkled on, Vanessa sat at her desk, staring at her phone. The cursor blinked in the Twitter app. Finally, she typed, "Today I learned that sometimes a laugh isn't just a laugh, and grace goes both ways. At Jenny M and I are both keeping our jobs, and maybe gaining something more, number healing together." She hit send, then called Jenny. "Did you see it?" "Yeah." Jenny's voice was thick with emotion. "Thank you." "No," Vanessa said softly. "Thank you for reminding me what it feels like to be human." In her small apartment, Jenny looked at the framed photo on her wall, her father at her graduation, both of them laughing uncontrollably during the ceremony. She smiled through her tears. "Being human," she said, "is messy sometimes. The best things usually are." The media storm died as quickly as it had begun, but something remained. Two women, connected by a moment of vulnerability, finding strength in each other's scars. And maybe, just maybe, teaching the world a little something about grace. A week later, Jenny returned to work. The first person in the waiting room was Vanessa Trump. "Your wrist?" Jenny asked, no trace of laughter this time. "Healing," Vanessa smiled, "like everything else." They had breakfast together in the hospital cafeteria, ignoring the stares and whispers. Their story had evolved into something different now, not a scandal, but a lesson. "My therapist says I should thank you," Vanessa said, stirring her coffee. "Thank me? For what?" "For making me human again. In their eyes." She gestured vaguely at the world outside. "I was just the Trump wife. Now I am." "Now you are Vanessa," Jenny finished, "who does yoga and gets hurt and feels pain like everyone else. And you are not just the laughing receptionist anymore." "No," Jenny smiled. "I am the girl who taught Trump about grace." They both laughed then, freely, genuinely, without fear or shame. Outside, New York kept moving, but something had shifted. In a world of instant judgment and viral outrage, two women had chosen understanding over anger, healing over hate. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change the story.